Obviously, we have President Dr. Gary Ransdell with us. He will begin with an opening statement, and then he will be happy to take your questions.
Well, thank you all for being here. None of us expected to be here today, but we are, and that's fine. Ross spoke with me last Thursday evening following our NCAA basketball game against the University of Kentucky, and told me that he had received an inquiry from the University of Mississippi, and told me what he knew at that time. And I asked him, well, where is the search in its process? And he said he felt like it was moving along fairly quickly, and that he was one of 3 candidates. And so Ross went to Ole Miss on Monday for interviews, and then went back. What is today? Wednesday. Went back. Is back today. So he interviewed Monday, and he's there today to sign a contract, and they announced that he was their AD at noon today. I did talk with Chancellor Jones Monday morning extensively, and we talked for quite some time. You know, I think was it Monday that Ross went for an interview? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, we talked yesterday morning. We talked Tuesday morning. I talked with the Chancellor at length yesterday morning about Ross's interview the day before, and where they were heading and what his thinking was. And so that was a constructive conversation, and I did reiterate some of the expectations. So I told him we look forward to competing against Ole Miss athletically for the next several years as a result of this appointment. So that's where we are, and I'm happy to entertain any questions. There's no agenda here, but I've received a lot of calls from several of you over the last day or two, and I figured, well, let's just talk with everybody at once. That'd be a little bit easier. Because one person's question may also help another reporter help zero in on what they would like to convey as well. So the floor is all yours, and I'm wide open for whatever you'd like to discuss.
Guys, have a microphone, we'll pass it around.
Mr. President, were you satisfied with the quantity and the quality of communication from Ross regarding his movement to Ole Miss?
Yeah, it unfolded rather quickly. I mean, from Thursday night, an initial communication with Ross and me, and I don't know how much they had been verbally in communication in the days leading up to that, but for him to receive the inquiry from a search firm, to go in for an interview, to me talking with their chancellor asking permission to negotiate terms, to being there the next day to sign a contract, that's a pretty quick timeline. But I have no idea how long their position was open leading up to that point. I do know the other individuals that they interviewed, but I don't know when that occurred. I assumed Ross was the last to interview, and then the offer came, so that moved pretty quickly. So I assume they had a good and thorough process that they followed.
Were you surprised, disappointed, and what were some of your personal emotions when you first came to meet?
Well, my emotions were at a pretty high level, because we had just lost an NCAA basketball game, and we had a team in the locker room that I was trying to compliment and thank for what they had done in the last few weeks. So that's where my mind was at the time. And this was a 5-minute conversation in the hallway between the locker room and the media room in the Yum Center. So, you know, there wasn't much opportunity to, and I'm not one that gets too high or too low based on the news of the day anyway. But yeah, I was surprised. I was not expecting it, and I mean, anytime you lose a good administrator, you're disappointed. And I want to be quick to point out that Ross was a terrific AD for 2 years. Smart, insightful, well-connected, careful in his decisions, and I mean that in a very positive way. And gave us great leadership for 2 years, and he and I worked exceedingly well together. So yeah, when you lose somebody of Ross's professional ability, of course you're disappointed. But you know what? We've got an outstanding athletic program at an even greater university, and in the last 7 or 8 hours, couple dozen sitting ADs and senior associate ADs. I mean, the list is growing in a hurry of people who will want this job, and we'll have a very thorough process. And so, am I worried about the future? Absolutely not. But sure, I hate to lose Ross because he's the best, and Ole Miss is getting a great athletic director.
Was the level of surprise and I guess disappointment too magnified because you literally had to go through this maybe about 2 years ago?
You don't ever expect to hire anybody in a senior executive position, and our AD sits on our administrative council, which is our council of vice presidents, with whom I meet on Monday mornings. And so Ross had, as our athletic director always will be an important part of our senior executive team. And you don't ever hire somebody at that level without expecting them to be with you for a while, because the gravity of the work and the consequences of the decisions in play, and in this case the amount of money at stake in a serious athletic department. So yeah, I expected a longer tenure than that, but on the other hand, I'm not naive in such matters, and Ross was well respected, and because of his strong professional network, he was well known. So I guess I'm not too surprised from that standpoint. But yeah, as I said, anytime you lose a key individual at a vice presidential level, you're disappointed if you weren't expecting it, or if you didn't initiate it, which was certainly not the case with Ross.
What's the plan for the period before which you hire a new AD? Are you going to hire somebody for the interim?
Well, I won't hire somebody for an interim. I need to think that through. Clearly, Todd Stewart would be the obvious choice, and frankly, we've been tied up with a lot of things the last day or two, and just have not gotten to that point. But we will likely have an interim. I do not feel a sense of urgency to fill this. There's not a recruiting date looming on the horizon that you feel like you've got to, get out in front of in this particular appointment process. So we'll take our time, and we'll build a very strong pool, and then we'll have a search committee, and we'll work our way through that pool and arrive at a finalist group. And so this will be a more methodical search than what you typically find for a head coach, for example, at this point in the season, when you got so many pressures that are really forcing an expedited timeline. I can't give you a timeline because I don't know what that will be at this point, but we'll take our time and do it right.
How is the process going to be different from when you were changing the guard from Wood to Ross, if it's going to be different at all?
Well, I don't know that it'll be too much different. I don't remember exactly the dates, but we had a good pool. We narrowed it down. We interviewed actually at Hot Springs around the basketball tournament. We interviewed our finalists and made a choice. And Ross started a few weeks later. Again, there's no date certain or no events that we'll work around in this regard. I would expect that by the end of the semester we would have somebody in place, or we'll have made an appointment. I can't tell you we'll have somebody in place. The dynamics that come into play with those individuals or that chosen individual will dictate that.
From your perspective, what would be the most important quality the next AD should possess?
Actually, I anticipated that. And so, I thought about some of the things that we would, that are going to be important to me. Clearly, knowledge of the profession is paramount. Business acumen. This is a serious business with a $22 million athletic budget and a lot at stake. A strong professional network. I've been observing Ross found that to be quite an asset. Fundraising skills are going to be important. Strength in personnel matters. Leadership traits, personal values, work ethic. Then you look for experiences. Is it in marketing? Is it in sales? Is it in what individual? No individual is going to have all the strengths you're looking for, but the personal values and ethics and integrity, along with the innate leadership skills and the acumen that comes with some level of seasoning, I think is going to be very important. we got to balance the budget every year, and we got to grow our revenue streams if we're going to continue to be competitive. And we've made some major decisions in the last year or two with Ross. And one thing I will tell you, I fully expect a new athletic director to look pretty darn good next year with increased ticket sales in football and basketball.
Can you recall a time when you had this much turnover? I mean, going back to July, starting with baseball, obviously men's and women's basketball, and now Ross. I mean, can you ever remember?
No, I can't. And that's they're important decisions, but they're not as important as a lot of other things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis across a serious academic institution, and what goes on in our classrooms and our laboratories day in, day out, and decisions that we have to make and things in which I'm engaged from an academic standpoint and a student life standpoint are really more important in the total scheme of things for a large, complex university. Yet what happens in the athletics arena is so visible and so scrutinized. If we were in a search for a dean or even a provost, this wouldn't be happening. It didn't happen. We just did that recently, a year or two ago. Because it's so visible, and so many people are engaged, interested, and track every move, you have to do it right. And since this individual reports directly to me and is at a vice presidential level capacity in our structure, which is both prudent and NCAA expected, I might add, I've got to be engaged and I've got to take it very seriously. And therefore, like a lot of things in this job, you do what the job demands when it's demanded, and that's what we'll do.
What's the plan for Ross in the meantime? Will he stick around here for a few more weeks, I assume, or will he start at Ole Miss right away? You know that for sure yet? We
haven't talked about that. We've been involved and I haven't been involved up until this week with the women's basketball search. Ross and Todd have been involved in that in a serious way. And I've just became involved this week. Now I find myself a bit more involved in that than I expected to be. And again, Ross and I have not, because of that, Ross and I, and other things going on this week, Ross and I have just not had a chance to talk about an ending date and a contract termination date, and we will. I talked to him this morning briefly as he was getting on a plane to go to Oxford, and call me when you get back, and we'll work out the specifics of a transition, and that's how we're going to have to do it.
In the world of conference realignment, changing every so quickly, how does Ross's departure affect WKU's position in the whole realignment talks?
Zero. I mean, I serve on the BCS Oversight Committee, represent the Sunbelt Conference among the 11 BCS conferences, about to be either 9 or 10, depending on what happens with the Mountain West and Conference USA merger, and then what becomes of the WAC. So I'm close to those dynamics. We've just hired a new commissioner, Carl Benson. Carl and I are in regular communication. I'm chairing the strategic planning committee for the conference. So I'm pretty directly engaged in those matters, and that's a presidential thing.
You mentioned the women's coaching search. How is that affected at all, or does this maybe delay the hiring process?
Todd and I are discussing that right now. We've had a couple of interviews. Well, Todd and Ross have interviewed half a dozen very good candidates, and so we've zeroed in on a few that we want to meet with, that I would like to meet with before we would make a decision. But I'm more focused on it now than I was last week. That process may run its course pretty quickly. We've been very fortunate to have some outstanding candidates, and I think that will move along quickly. But there's one or two more conversations we want to have before we make that determination. But that could happen pretty quickly.
Is there any disappointment at all, I guess, in light of some of the other personnel moves that have happened in recent years with people moving to, obviously Coach Dalton, Coach Horn, and others moving up to, I guess they would be called bigger jobs. Is there disappointment that it's kind of happened again with Ross moving to the SEC?
Well, and both examples that you mentioned went to SEC institutions. I would like to think that we're a serious Division I athletic program that competes at the highest level, and our student athletes, both academically and athletically, are as good as you would find anywhere. And for the most part, that's true. But athletics, fair or unfair, the reality is athletics is often a dollar-driven enterprise. And institutions that are part of conferences that have $15 to $20 million revenue sharing from television contracts and bowl revenues and 80,000 or even 60,000 seat football stadiums create revenue possibilities that make it difficult for us to compete from a dollar standpoint. So we've got to hire coaches, and we've got to have athletic administrators that can rise above that and recruit quality students that are good athletes that can put us in a competitive position in any given sport at any given time. So that's just the nature of the world in which we live. And we will compete with SEC institutions. But will we lose quality people to those institutions primarily because of the dollars in play? Sure, I guess that's a reality, as recent history would suggest for us. But I'm not about to suggest that there's anything secondary or in the least bit. In fact, you look at you look at some SEC institutions, and that would put our competitive abilities on the court, in the pool, on the field, on the track, whatever it may be, and we can compare very favorably. We get the most out of a very good collection of coaches and student athletes. But from a dollar standpoint, we're going to lose some from time to time, and that's okay. We'll be attractive to those who will come in and take their place, and at every opportunity we'll do our best to trade up.
When Wood Selig left, the program, or sorry, the state of athletics here was so much greater than what it was when he arrived.
Correct.
Obviously, Ross didn't have that as much time to devote as Wood did, but do you feel that he did the same thing?
Well, you can't compare it because Wood was here for, what, 11 years, 10, 11 years? So, I mean, we did have a lot of improvement to make when Wood came in, and when Wood left, we were strong across the Sun Belt Conference and conference championships and nationally competitive programs, academically and athletically. You can't match that track record in 2 years. And we've had some coaching changes in the last 2 years, and we maybe have not been as competitive as I expect us to be. But we've made the necessary changes to put us in a position to be, and I think that's the important thing. Football and men's basketball are now fixed, and that wasn't the case when Ross came in, although Willie was hired. Coach Taggart was hired at that point. He hadn't been here but a very short time when Ross came in, and we had a long way to go at that time. We've traveled that distance now. Women's basketball will be fixed in a year or two, and the next athletic director will take some credit for that. So, yeah, for the most part, things are better than when Ross arrived. And when Wood left, we were riding pretty high, but some areas we began to have some problems in some areas competitively, not academically and not in any other way. But it's the nature of 19 intercollegiate sports. To stay competitive, it's a challenge. Year in, year out, month in, month out, week in, week out, day in, day out, to remain competitive at a high level. But that's our expectation. That's what our fans expect. And so my expectations are that we will compete for conference championships, we'll be nationally competitive in postseason play, and that we will sell tickets in big ways. And when those variables are not in play, I mean, I'm confident we're going to continue to be academically strong across the board, and that's the first priority. But we got to win championships and fill the stands. And when those things slip, then we deal with it.
Anybody else?
Now that you're playing a larger role in the women's search, could you just talk a little bit about some of the things you personally see that the new coach needed to bring to that job?
Recruiting will be first. I'm going to say recruiting will be second, probably third. We've got outstanding young women in our program, and we've got a quality product and great facilities and all the values you expect in a women's basketball program. We just haven't been competitive, and we haven't been selling tickets. And those two things, unfortunately, will catch up to a coach no matter how patient you are. But everything else in the program is exactly where you want it. But we got to get our fans back in Dill Arena, and we got to win basketball games, and we got to get back to the top of the Sun Belt Conference, and we've got to get to the NCAA tournament and penetrate. And that's what we expect in both of our basketball programs. And I can't give the women's program any more slack than the men in that regard. So you just heard what I'm going to be saying to our next women's basketball coach before he or she accepts this position. And if they can convince me that that's their agenda as well, then we're off and running.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.